Jenny Hand, I'm CEO at Reaching People. Reaching People is a consortia of local voluntary organisations and community social enterprises in Leicester and Leicestershire. We've been around for quite some time now, probably about 12 years, but not in the same shape and format as we are now. We're always changing, we're always developing, we're always looking at new opportunities. And we welcome new local members, and we're talking to other people in other areas shortly, and have done in the past, about consortia and partnerships. We develop very much with our members. So one of our new programmes is Leading in Leicester and Leicestershire. That's still in development, and Shim from that programme, the programme manager, is with us. And yeah, you can read more about that. It's got its separate website. So this is a seminar that's part of our Leading in Leicester and Leicestershire programme, and we're really fortunate to be joined with locality and funded through Power to Change for this work, which is the middle one of 3 seminars or workshops, focusing very much on community assets, what they are, how people have worked with them, and what more we can do. Community assets, you might think asset transfers are just about council buildings to the voluntary sector. We can think a lot wider than that. There are going to be lots and lots of empty shops and other buildings around. So I'm really looking forward to this session with a wide vision on what might be community property, how we go about it, and some very practical hints and tips about how we work together in that process and get real community ownership of areas where people live, which is very much part of our thinking around Reaching People, and also many of our organisations. So I'm going to hand over to Mick, who's going to say something about locality, and then Ian and Dina, who will lead this session. We're going to encourage you to keep using the chat throughout, which we'll keep an eye on, and there will be opportunities for you to ask questions and get involved later on. Over to you then, Mick.
Thanks, Jenny. I think you pretty much said everything, actually. So I'd just say very briefly in terms of locality, we're a membership organisation. I'm based in Nottingham, but I cover the Midlands, going to Yorkshire and Humber as well, so wherever the sort of support opportunities are. We're a membership organisation, so we're always constantly trying to share information and good practice, particularly in this sort of climate. As Jenny said, this is very much looking at communities and empty properties, and I know Dina and Ian are going to talk about their sort of approach in a different part of Leicestershire, to rather than just purely Leicester. So it should be a good session around that. As Jenny said, there are concerns and, you know, difficult times, but I guess that old mantra about don't waste a good crisis. You know, if there are going to be situations which provide opportunities, and you find that rather than asset transfer, doing something along the lines of hiring space for a short while in high profile, high footfall areas, if that's going to work for you, then great. So yeah, without further ado, over to Dina.
Thanks, Mick. Thanks, Jenny. Thank you everybody for turning up today. I'm Dina. I've got 2 hats on today. I'm connector at Think FC, which is a social enterprise that you'll hear a little bit more about during the presentation. And I'm also one of the founder members and in the steering crew of Coalville Can. So what you're going to get is a little presentation about Coalville Can and what we're doing in the Northwest Leicestershire, and then myself and Ian will share some tools that hopefully you can take away and use. So what I'm going to do is share my screen, including the sound. There we go. So hopefully all the technology works. So just introducing in Coalville Can, this is the start of the presentation. Welcome again. What we're hoping to do there is help transform the place by building on the strengths that are in the community. So we all know that people are the biggest assets, and we know they're all there, and if we could just give them a chance to take ownership, responsibility and control, we know we can make a massive difference. And that's what we're trying to do in Coalville with Coalville Can. So 4 elements to what we're trying to achieve. Sorry, because I've admitted someone to the waiting room. My clicker didn't work. So firstly, taking over some spaces, so being an ethical landlord, finding a building that we can run for the benefit of the community, supporting people to set up their own enterprises, supporting people to work together on community projects and to collaborate and connect with others that already exist, that are already doing great things. So we're not there to duplicate or compete, it's more about bringing people together in the community. So what have we been doing? So since March, like Mick says, you know, the opportunity actually of being online and connecting with people in different ways has led to all sorts of things. And what we've managed to do over lockdown is build a local crew and a Facebook group that's currently about 500, I think. So we've got 11 local people who are all involved in Coalville Can with all different skills and interests, very broad. We realised by working together that we also needed some extra expertise that we could draw down on when needed. So what we've brought together is what we call our support crew. And these are people with specific expertise, some of them local, some of them further afield, that we can draw down on. You'll see Ian there. Ian's one of the support crew and he's on the line later. But there's lots of others in the community and wider. For instance, Dave Boyle, so he's like an expert on community shares. Wendy James, architect. Andy Keller, he's a local developer who's on the crew, so we can pick his brains for advice. Peter used to live in Leicestershire. He's now chief executive of the Alternative Technology Centre. So when we're doing all our green projects, we can involve him and his expertise. Loughborough University, helping share what we're trying to do with their students, with Kate. And we've also been connecting with various funders. So people like Land Aid, who are the charity, they help put funds together for the developers and dish them out, especially to young people who are facing homelessness. So we've been working with them. They provide a pro bono scheme as well. Locality, obviously, Architectural Heritage Fund have provided some funds for one of the buildings. So we're building up what we call our support crew and list of funders. So together with Think FC, which is my other hat, building on the strengths of people in the community, this is what we've been up to. So just taking each one in turn, taking ownership of spaces and becoming an ethical landlord. We had a good look around Coalville area and found absolutely plenty of buildings that could come into community ownership that are currently either derelict or empty or underused right across the community, from old co-op store to market hall to a pub that's just become available in a local village. And a little bit more about those later. Just so you can see them a bit clearer. Oh, there's a rec cinema as well. That's a real favourite for Coalville. A cinema, Art Deco cinema, and the foyer is really special with some real hidden gems. So that one's currently been empty for about 10 years. So each of those buildings needs to be run as a sustainable enterprise in its own right, and what we will be able to offer is flexibility, which is working with the community, delivering what the community want and what the community need. And the landlord will actually be the community, so any surpluses and rents will accrue to the community, and once they've paid for the activities, they will go into a community wealth fund, and that's free reserves for the community to spend as they wish. So for those of you who don't know Coalville, we have this is the old co-op store on, let me get it right, Beaver Road, 3 stories. So we think it would make a really good community retail space with accommodation and enterprise and co-working. That's right in the centre of Coalville. There's also this incredible building, which is the market, currently looked after by the council on behalf of the community. Massive space. The market's planned to move out. We think it could be a really good event, an exhibition space, community venue, young people's venue. So currently, actually it looks a load better than this at the moment because the new market manager's made some real improvements. Our architect, Wendy, that you met earlier, had this to say about it. And on the council currently, it's not fit for purpose for what they want it for, and it just costs too much. So we hope that rather than mothballing it or pulling it down, we'll be able to do something a bit different. This is one of the suggestions from one of the young people that we were speaking to. So hopefully we can just get people thinking a bit differently and doing something they haven't thought of. This is Bridge Road sites. This is in the centre of Coalville. Again, it's a cooperative store site, big building. Currently Iceland are in part of it. What's on the right, which is a 34-house supposedly affordable development, that's what's likely to happen. What we hope will happen is the Central England Co-op Board will make the decision to sell it to the community, and we've had a bid in with them since July, and it's not been turned down yet. So we're very hopeful that we can keep working, bringing in partners to convince the Co-op Board that it'll be a much better idea to sell it to the community. There's been various articles in the paper about that as well, in the local press and the Leicester Mercury. This was the Three Crowns pub that's just become available. It's been a weed den since March, so it's had a little bit of damage done to it, but nothing too major. And we think it could be a really nice co-working space, creative space, micro pub, loft space apartments. So it could do lots of different things and basically create a community enterprise. So the second thing on our list was supporting people to start their own enterprises. And as part of that, we've been working together with people like Number 22 Community Hub on the High Street. They're looking to become a CIC. I think they are a CIC now. They're wanting to create a sensory room and provide a hub for lots of different groups to come together to do training. We're working with Coalville Education Partnership and Mixed working with them too. And they're currently in the process of working in about, I think it's a 40-acre woodland to make it a sustainable woodland experience for visitors and local people. And local resident Victoria Herriman, we've supported her to create a business called Narwhal Design, and as a result of that she's created logos for local groups, and there's some examples. So plenty of other people are involved. So CASE, of which Ian's part of, help set up cooperatives and social enterprises, but there's other people like Sir Thomas White Loan Charity that are out there that we can connect up with, others who can lend up to £20,000 for local people who want to start their own enterprise, which is interest free for 9 years, and obviously working together with the council, locality, reaching people. One project that's just been announced that some of you might be aware of is the Kickstart scheme. So we've created a number of roles, and actually we got the email yesterday from Jenny saying DWP have approved it. So the next few weeks we have a lot of work to put together in developing these roles, getting them out there, and hopefully in January we'll have 16 young people starting working in Coalville on various projects. This is an example of a young person's role for connecting young people and making spaces and connections for them. So the final two items of what we're thinking about is working together on community projects and connecting people. So we started off doing a community survey back in June. When we got to 100, we thought we'd share some results. So these are some of the results, the different age ranges. We looked at how people were feeling connected. And I think this next one shows quite interesting. On the left, you've got the sense of community. The blue is 2019, orange 2020. You can see people were feeling a lot more connected in 2020 than they were previously. When you compare that to feeling of safety, it was very much similar. So I think COVID has had some quite interesting results, and I think sense of community is one of those that's come out of that, and it's certainly shown in this survey that we did. And we also looked at things that people wanted to change, and some of those helped us devise, the sorts of programs that we were thinking about offering. Just a little bit of a summary. So I think getting surveys out there and speaking to local people is really important, but obviously only if you then work on them and respond to them. So we've had lots of articles in the local press. This one was about the co-op. So when the co-op moved out, they let us go in and rescue any items. So we've currently got a stock of items which is sitting in Coalville Market. Some have already been given away to local charities and enterprises, and we tried to rescue as much as we could from the co-op. In September we hosted a connecting gathering, not allowed to call it an event, a connecting gathering, which was basically we took over various market stalls, and in a physically distanced way, we managed to bring quite a lot of people together to share their enterprises and their community projects. And actually on the day, traders reported an massive increase in footfall, and some of them were a third up on their take-ins. I don't know if you've heard of Nub News, but I think they're sort of a new kind of way of online press, which Leicester probably has as well. But Coalville Nub News has been really supportive and has reported on lots of different things that we've been doing, including training up 18 mental health first aid champions using the venue that we mentioned, number 22 Community Hub. They've also reported on some of the things that are happening with the co-op and some of the buildings, and they reported on Victoria, who I mentioned earlier, who joined a group called Camarados, which I'm going to share with you, and she actually won a poster competition. So she designed this poster for this organisation, and this organisation are awesome, and hopefully you'll link up with them. These are their six rules, 6 principles that they abide by. I'll provide the link to that later. And Victoria then got the opportunity to design their poster that's now in all the public living rooms around the country, which is what they offer. They support people to create public living rooms, and they have online spoon rooms, so well worth a look. And another community group, so this is Jade going to Morrison's, and over the COVID period she set up a mutual aid group supported by Coalville Can. She's now got an association. She's hoping to become a CIC in the future to enable to carry on what she's doing, which is basically working with elderly people and providing different opportunities for them to get together. So as part of all that, what we thought was really important was to develop tools and resources that people could use and share. So one of them is Community Asset Bingo, which we'll share with you a little bit later. As part of Think FC, we share thinking tools, and this is a little bit of a summary of some of them. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through it all, but they're all free to download on the website. One of our favourite tools is something called a What Could I Bird, and this is one that helps turn your hindering thoughts into more helpful ones. So if anybody is having any hindering thoughts, they can make a What Could I Bird and think to yourself, what could you say, ask, remember or imagine that's more helpful. So we've shared these all over the place, and they're really useful. We've also got some desk planners that you can download. So this one was helping a young person recently set up their own bike repair business. This is called The Mission. What's my mission? There's also things like desk planners, like a weekly planner. This one, help plan what you're doing for the week. And we put one together for building ideas. So if people come forward and they say, what about that building, or what about this? You can actually send them to the website. They can download this, or you can give them it. And it means they can do a little bit of research themselves rather than expecting somebody else to do it. It's all about taking responsibility. So this is on the website, free to download as well, and it encourages you to go and do a bit of research into who owns it, what is it you want to do in it, how do you think it might be sustainable.
Really useful.
So just going back to those buildings, I'll give you a little bit of update on each one. So the co-op store, we've made a bid to Central England Co-op. We have got some architectural heritage funding for a feasibility study, which we can't use yet until the co-op gives us a decision. There was a doctor's surgery just outside the town centre. The council were quite keen on this one happening to create a sort of creative enterprise hub. Unfortunately, the owner, although he said he was community minded, wants 510,000 for it when we think it's probably worth about 300. We're also in discussion with a charity that have got a floor of their building that's not currently used. So we're hoping that they'll let us use that. The landlord was planning to take down the Rec Cinema. We're talking to him about the front, although we've not heard from him for a while. So who knows what's happened with the COVID issue. The market mentioned earlier is still in use. It's got an old covenant that will disappear soon. So it opens up lots of opportunities for things to happen. 3 Crowns, we're talking to the landlord, and just over the last few days we've been talking to Whitwick Parish Council, and we've started a survey so that we can apply for more than a pub support. And Bridge Road Co-op, like I mentioned earlier, we have got a bid in with them, and we've had an offer already of 2.4 million from East Midlands Homes to take on some of the housing that's included in the site. And there's a potential for a community-owned railway station. So there's all these potential projects, and what we needed was a tool that could help us quickly assess the likelihood of success, how much it might cost, where we might get funding from, how you'll finance the fund. So we've come up with this thing called the Wicked Spreadsheet, and this was working together with the Cooperative Assistance Network in Bristol. So it might look a little bit scary at first, but there is a video online that you can watch. It's also available under open source, so it's free to use. But in very quick summary, you can plug in some costs and some expectations of income. You can plug in grants and in-kind contributions that you might get. You can then have a little think about the loans, the social investment and the community shares that will be part of that financing deal. And then it will automatically, with a bit of jiggery-pokery, look at the profit and loss for 30 years, which includes calculating the annual community wealth. And then it will also look at the balance sheet projections and look at the total cumulative community wealth. Try saying that quick. So during COVID, you probably noticed there's just been lots and lots and lots of networks and things set up. So I thought it would be useful to share some of those that we've been connecting to. And here's just a few of them. There are lots more, and apologies if I've missed yours. But this group have been meeting monthly. They've now got some funding from Power to Change to carry it on for next year, and encouraging people to offer their services. Liberating Structures have been really, they're not a network, but they're actually it's a website where you can download tools to help connect with people and involve everybody in discussions. And Henry Stewart from Happy has been offering workshops over lockdown, which have been fantastic. The Be More Pirate movement, another one. The Alternative. The New System Alliance, this one has only launched in the last few days, but is really good. Math Potts from Camarado's launched it, I think it was yesterday or the day before. It's worth a look. Stir to Action offer courses and a magazine every month or quarter, I think it might be. Trust the People is another one. Community organisers, so they held a festival in the summer, which we were part of. So lots of people doing really cool stuff. I've put a page together of links, so when I send the slides out, you can have all the links there. But I also thought it was worth mentioning a couple of books. So there's Rekindling Democracy, which is a really good book that's written by Cormac Russell, part of the asset-based community development movement. This one is a brilliant blueprint for a revolution, well worth a read. And there's some really good interviews with the author online. And How to Be More Pirate, which Coalville features. There's 3 pages of Coalville and how community benefit societies could be the answer. So what next for us? So we've actually just finalised the registration. It's currently with the Financial Services Authority, so we will have Coalville CAN CBS set up very soon. We're developing a website, or rather Victoria is. She's learnt a new skill in the last 2 weeks, and she's busy making a really cool website for Coalville CAN. We've got the Kickstart project, which is a massive project we'll be getting on with over the next few months, doing the Whitwick survey and helping people from Whitwick to come together, find a Whitwick crew to take over the 3 Crowns. Keep on building relationships with the council and look for some strategic partnerships with some of the funders that are now starting to open their doors again. Getting ready for the first community share offer. And if you don't know what a community share offer is, you will learn all about that shortly from Ian. And lots of applications. So thank you for your time. That's good timing because the doorbell's just rung. I'm going to hand over to Ian, who, as you saw, was in our support crew. And he's going to tell you all about why we chose a community benefit society as the vehicle for Coalville communities and neighbours, i.e. Coalville CAN. So over to you, Ian.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a key part of what we were trying to do is to do community-led regeneration. So it was really important to us that the people who lived, shopped, worked locally felt and had a genuine stake and ownership in the, ownership in the venture and in the legal vehicle. And that's why we chose the Community Benefit Society rather than any other model. So a community interest company is another way of organising. I'm not going to go into that, but if anyone's interested, feel free to drop your email in the chat and I'll get in touch afterwards, or a phone number. But for us, we were very keen that we had a legal vehicle that allowed us the potential for people to be in control in the community. Now, of course, a legal vehicle's a way of doing things. It doesn't guarantee how people will operate. That's much more down to culture and your values, but it does give us the potential to involve people. So I think if we slip to the slides. Great, so CBS is a type of cooperative, and so far that's probably been the underemphasized part, that cooperative principles, values and ethics were at the start of what we were trying to do. So CBS is a type of cooperative, and anyone who wants to be a member can join, and that can be individuals and organizations. And the CBS exists for the benefit of the community. It'd be useful to have the other talking points up, so I don't. So the CBS says for the benefit of the community, and importantly, like a community interest company, the assets can be locked in for the good of that community, and there is the potential for grants and charitable tax status. But importantly, it's run by an elected board, so everyone who's a member is able to elect the board. And the unique thing about a community benefit society is it can do a share offer. So if we move on, just going to go through this quickly. I'll happily have a chat with anyone separately. So it's the yep, there's a quick plug for the How to Be More Pirate book. What we'll share now is a short video explaining.
Once upon a time, there was a community that didn't want the last pub where they lived to close down. They had great ideas about how it could be much more than a pub, but they needed money to make their dreams come true. The banks didn't think the community could make it work, and the local council didn't have any money to spare. But there was a group of people who did believe in them. Themselves. If they all pulled together, they could pool their money, from the well-off to the not-so-well-off. More than 200 enterprises in the UK have raised finance this way. From football clubs to piers, wind farms and local transport. What links them all is they respond to a need a community wants to see fulfilled. More than 40,000 people have already invested this way, often from as little as £50, but have raised amounts from £20,000 to more than £1.5 million. All this money was raised through people buying shares, but these weren't ordinary shares. They were community shares. Community shares don't work like normal shares, where you might be allowed to sell your shares to someone else. And your investment isn't a donation made in the hope that things will work out. At the heart of a community share issue is a business plan and offer document that shows how the money being raised will enable good things to happen. Your money will be backing something that has a real chance of success as a viable business. And when a community backs an idea by investing, it makes it more likely that other people will too. And the more successful the enterprise is, the more likely it is that people will get their money back. You might even get interest on your shares and a tax break on your investment. Regardless of how much you invest, you all have one vote. That means you and the other investors control the enterprise. And if you think it's being run badly, you can do something about it. Sharing ownership with others means you share the risk and the benefits. We're helping enterprises, supporters and advisors to use community shares. And communities can even run their share offer directly through our Microgenius platform. So if your community believes in something, then investing in community shares can make it happen.
So that was a brief introduction to community shares. I'm more than happy to go into that in more detail if anyone's interested. But the main reason, there's some recent research just came out in October this year, where there was a very in-depth study of the reasons for investing in community shares. And you've probably read the slide as I've been talking, but you can see the actual interest in financial return and the tax relief available is less than 1 in 5 people. But 4 out of 5 people are investing in them because of the social or environmental benefit, and over half are interested in helping the community. And I think, just whilst we move on, to highlight the community wealth fund that we talked about earlier, the idea here is that we own the properties, but that doesn't mean that we're necessarily doing typical community uses in the property. It means we're the landlord, so that if someone comes along and wants to open a retail shop or wants to do some other venture, as we're taking the rent, and that rent, the surplus from that is kept in the community, and how that is then spent will be decided by the members of the Community Benefit Society. So the pot of money, and Dean will go into this in a little more detail later, will be decided by the members of the Community Benefit Society's unrestricted funds. So it's putting the community in real control of the wealth that's generated in that community. Of course, our argument is community businesses are the better option. And recent research has said that after 5 years, about 42% of businesses are still going. But for community-run businesses, and especially those that have used the community share offer, the number's more like 92%. And of those running a community share offer, 85% believe it's had a positive impact on financial performance, because local members of the community genuinely own a share in that and are interested in the success of the venture. However, community share offers, as you can see on the map on the right of the screen, are much underused in the East Midlands. As a percentage of the investors in community shares across the UK, only 1 in 100 have come from the East Midlands. And as in other funds, the East Midlands doesn't step up and take its share of the available finance or the available funding. And this is something that we're hoping to have a small but hopefully noticeable impact on. So these were some tweets from Vidya from Power to Change. And a key element of what we're doing is we believe that our approach can offer a genuine alternative for the high street, and independent local businesses, and especially those with community landlords, stand a real opportunity to shape and to revitalise High Street as a community space where it's not just the same old retail, but it's a diverse mix of uses. And importantly, if the community owns the shops, if they own the office space, if they own the rental space, the accommodation space, all of that money can stay in the community and can further help. If you like, the community will benefit from any regentrification.
On that point, I know, like the city, there's loads of busy, every time I walk through the city centre of Leicester, another shop's closed down and Debenham's going. But I guess there's what's the council? Because I mean, the councils, I know they're bringing out all these kind of environment, their plans are revitalising the city, and I'm not sure how supportive of the city council, because there's a lot of potential in the city for this. But how are the council on board with it? Or I guess is Sir Peter on board with it? What's the kind of level? Because this works, where I'm aware of it works, you probably need that political support to really, if you want to kickstart a city centre.
Okay, I would probably say that our whole aim was we looked around the country looking where community wealth building was happening, being driven by councils, and that relies on you having a council who believes in it. So you're looking at places like Wigan, Greater Manchester, North Ayrshire, where they're carrying out community wealth building. Our interest is in what can you do when the council isn't interested. And the other problem with it is if a council does something, no matter how well intentioned they are, it's shaped by their culture and their priorities. What does it look like when the community does it from the grassroots up? Now, it'd be a lot easier if the council came on board, and I think the third in this series of presentations will cover that, and that's the right place for that question.
Okay.
I think the other challenge is this is not part of our common sense. For me, this is obvious. This is just makes perfect sense.
Absolutely.
But there's a huge education role for people. It's taken us months of conversations, lobbying, gentle and at times frustrated explanation for people to take us seriously. At first we were dismissed and patronised back when we first started talking about this. Now people are starting to take us a little bit more seriously, but that's probably just because we're still here and still talking about it.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'm just aware there's, but like things like that, from the Haymarket on, there's a lot of buildings in our city centre, and you're thinking, get behind this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we, as an example, we've not touched on it, but we did a presentation and we invited all of the North West Leicestershire councils along and all of the local parish councils. And we've since had conversations and invites from councillors across the political spectrum and a number of parish councils wanting to know more and how does it translate for them. So we've been talking to officers in the council and addressing them in terms of their agenda. Now we're talking to the councillors and trying to explain what we're doing. It's an education process, but interestingly, we feel we've made more progress in the last 2 weeks with the local councillors than we've made in the last few months. I think that's because we put a lot of hard work in and laid the groundwork and built the network and local support. So if it was just us talking, why should anyone listen to us? But when we've got members of the community behind us, and we are in effect just ready to step back and let their voice be heard, then people will listen.
I thought it would be really useful is just to share some of the tools. So I mentioned Community Asset Bingo. So this was designed by Victoria, made by myself and Victoria after we visited Cormac Russell on one of his courses in London on asset-based community development, and we thought it'd be really nice to get something out there to share with people. Now these, I don't know if you can see me in my little window, we have some giant ones that you can print off onto a card, and we used these in the market the other day when we had that event. We had a physically distanced and COVID-friendly version, so it all had sticky notes on it, so people could take them away, play with them, and nobody else would touch them. But the idea was people have a think about their community and think about all the different assets in it. And so it's not just buildings, but there might be people or shops or stories or the environment or sculpture, anything that's of interest to people. So this is available to download. Just to give you a close-up, this is the top half. So it's split into, there's 12 boxes altogether. And like I say, you can just download this and play with it in your community. We've not got time to do break out into rooms and play games, but that's what we'd normally do on a community connecting type of workshop. But you can see there's a variety of different things that people could think about their community. And when we played this for the first time in Coalville just before lockdown, we were all sat around the table and everybody wanted to put on the Coalville map all the negative stuff. They just wanted to say how crap things were. And when we introduced this and it was all about positives, it was just amazing to see the difference and the change over this couple of hours that we spent together when we played this game. And we got people in pairs, and we had made it a little bit competitive and had a bit of fun. But by the end of it, we had a map that was full of all the positives that people had thought of, and it was quite incredible. So that's freely available to download. So when I send these out, you'll get these links. There's a link to a Jamboard where you can actually play it online, which we did at the Community Organisers Festival, and there's a link there. And also we were thinking, could we do this in another language? So there is a Google Sheet out there that if people want this in another language, with a little bit of a donation to Victoria, we could persuade her to do it in a completely different language as well, which might be useful for some people. So I'll put the two links there that you'll get after the presentation. this is an image of what it looks like in Jamboard. So you can go grab a sticky note really easily and then just sort of play with it, and you can put people in rooms and play with it online. And we did a session where we did one round talking to people about creating a community, made it a bit competitive, and then we did a second round and we did that on looking at somebody else's point of view. So think about somebody that you want to engage with, like young person's group or an older person's group, whatever it might be, and think about it from their point of view, or ideally involve them in it. So the links are there and you can play with that later. So that's Community Asset Bingo. And then the other tool that I mentioned that I wanted to share a little bit more, and again, this is available free. You can email Austin at Can. Again, the links will be later to get the actual license, the open source license to use it. And there is a video online. But just to tell you a little bit more detail, so it's about the different areas than I said before, that there's a space to add in the buildings, the names and the spaces that are available. There's an area where you add some assumptions on things like build cost per area, square meters, tax rate, that type of thing. Then there's a little box where you can put in, it feeds in the potential grants that are out there, and then you can put in the percentage likelihood of getting them, which gives you an estimate of what the grants and in-kind contributions might be. And that feeds then into the total cost. So this bit here is the total costs and the calculation. So it works out for you the expected annual income and the expected total cost, less the grants, and that will give you then what's needed to be financed. Up at the top there, you can input different types of loan finance. So there's two boxes for loans and one for a share offer. So you can include your different elements that you will where you'll raise the finance from. And then at the bottom there you can see there's the yellow lines. The yellow one is a bit of input, the green is all calculated, so you can add in a few extra costs for your P&L. So there's a few expenses you can put in there and decide when you want the community wealth fund to start, and that will then automatically create your profit and loss for 30 years. And the final bit, it will then generate your balance sheet projections, which includes a cash line that's very handy to look at. This is all based on no overdraft, so it's based on, and it's just a rough idea as well. It's a viability check, so there's plenty of people out there like Cooperatives Assistance Network that can help, you know, look at more detailed viabilities, but this will really help towards thinking about a project and to start the process off. And oh yeah, there's also a little summary of results that then you can use to make comparisons on one building or another building and add them together. So I just put this together very quickly. This is an example of two of the results. So I looked at the 3 Crowns. At the moment, that one, the owner's saying it's for sale and he wants £360,000 for it. And I've used the market, assuming it's an asset transfer at £1. So I'll plug some figures in there, thinking about grants and in-kind contributions, community share offers and all those things, and put the business case together based on the uses that we came up with. So for the 3 Crowns in there was the enterprise space, the community pub, the community cafe, the creative space, and for the market there was a mix of events, young people's activities and community activities, but actually not being too ambitious on either raising the finance or the amount of income you could generate. You're talking about community wealth after 30 years of nearly 4 million, and that's then in the community in perpetuity. That includes, and this was based on 2,699 square meters of space coming back into use. So there are, like I say, videos online. There's Brian's top tips, and there's my video, which is an extract from the workshop we did. We can obviously run workshops as well, but there's free resources out there that can help. And bear in mind, these figures don't take into account any of the economic or social benefits from the actual activities and opportunities and the enterprises that will actually happen as a result of being able to be flexible about these spaces. So that is the end of our presentation.